G'day folks, I'm out for a bike ride. There's nothing like a solo bike ride to clear the head, and I've realised that I forgot to do something important a long time ago. I did this interview, it must be maybe 3 months ago now, I guess, and then I didn't end up publishing it because, shortly after we did it, our lives turned upside down and we moved from the big city in Melbourne to the middle of nowhere in Central Australia. And things got crazy, I guess these things happen, and I forgot to upload this video, but I've just remembered it now. So here we are. I'm filming this introduction while I'm in the middle of the ride. I'm in the desert. It doesn't look like the desert that much because it's been raining a lot in the last week. Very unusual rain, and there's some greenery around. It looks quite nice, actually. Well, to me it does. And anyway, so this interview is with Howie Jacobson. I really enjoyed it. It's close to my heart because I try to change people. That's what I do now. I try to change people, and sometimes it's hard. And I think this is really an important one for coaches to watch, but also anyone, if you've got family, friends, people that you're trying to help to get healthy or change the way they do things, then yeah, check it out. There's a lot of helpful stuff in this interview, and I hope you find it useful. And Howie, if you're watching, I'm sorry I took so long to get this up. Check out the link below, everyone. Check out the links and go and buy the book and enjoy the interview. All right, here we go.
All right, welcome to SpudFit, Howie. How are you today?
Hey.
Thanks for joining.
I'm awesome. Great to be here.
All right. Well, some people, I'm sure a lot of people who are watching SpudFit are familiar with some of your work, but can you just introduce yourself a little bit for people who don't know you?
Yeah, sure. First of all, I love talking to you because it always makes me optimistic that there will be a tomorrow.
Thank you. That's a fantastic compliment.
I'm a health coach. I'm a writer. So I've been a marketing teacher, marketing coach, business coach, executive coach for a long time. And then in 2011, I got the chance to enter the health world and the plant-based world when I got to work on a book with T. Colin Campbell, which ended up being called Whole. And
sorry to interrupt, but I love that book. That was my first introduction to your work, was reading that book, and it's a fantastic book. Anyone who hasn't read it should definitely read it. But sorry to interrupt. Keep going.
You can interrupt with compliments all night long, and with exhortations for people to buy stuff that will make me money. Just feel free.
Yes. No worries.
So Colin was very generous in attributing and crediting my work. I appeared on the cover as a with author, and that got me into the movement. And all of a sudden, I'd been plant-based and following people for like a decade already. And then all of a sudden I was like sharing the stage with, Chef AJ and Hans Deal and Drina Burton and these people who are like, I was been fanboying for years, and I thought, boy, I really want an excuse to talk to them, like not just like call them up and say, hey, would you be my friend, which I thought would be kind of weird. So I started this podcast, and I had about 50 episodes done, and I was just like, would record it with my phone and then upload the MP3 somewhere and not even write it up. I didn't even have a website. It was just sort of like posting wherever you posted things in 2013. And then I was on Rich Roll's podcast, and he was asking me what I do. And I said, well, I've got this, it's not really a podcast. I mean, not like yours. And, like I saw his gear and I was really intimidated. Like, you must be good because you have like an expensive microphone. And he's like, dude, go get a domain, make a real podcast, do this thing. We need you. So with that exhortation, I did. So I've been running the Plant Yourself podcast since 2013. So this week will be like episode 477 or 8.
Wow, a lot.
Yeah. I'm amazed. Like I don't really stick with things. So so it must have been fun because then I got to just speak to all these amazing people.
Yeah. That's it's really cool, and I love the podcast. I've listened to quite a lot of episodes of your podcast and been a big fan of it, and I did actually hear that Rich Roll episode as well, all those years back. That was really cool too, because like I said, the first time I had any engagement with your work was Whole, and then the next time was when I heard you on Rich Roll's podcast. So yeah, it's and when I was on Rich's show, I was equally intimidated. That was yeah, he's got all the gear and he's got that amazing place, and yeah, I'm just here in a little wooden studio that I built myself.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
If I were in a studio I'd built myself, my face would be like,
yeah,
so
yeah.
I'm impressed you can build something you're not worried is going to come crashing down on you.
It was a lockdown project. Me and my little 6-year-old son at the time, he's 7 now, built this for my wife. My wife's a singer, so we wanted to give her somewhere quiet to sing while everyone was at home, and she couldn't get quiet during the day. No one's out doing their thing, and she couldn't sing at home anymore. So we built her this little room, and it turns out I use it more than she does now.
Oh, okay. I didn't know that. Does she do your theme music?
Yeah, she does. Yeah, it's her voice. Yep, she's yeah, she's an amazing musician in lots of ways. She's a singer, but yeah, she plays all sorts of instruments too. She's far more talented than I.
Oh, cool. Yeah, they usually are, aren't they?
Yeah, that's it. Somehow I'm the one that gets the attention for eating potatoes, and she's this incredibly talented person, and yeah, that's not fair.
Yeah. And what do you do?
Yeah.
Well, you know about potatoes? I eat
Yeah.
them. I'm kind of famous for eating them, actually.
Yeah. That's hilarious. I was so we're getting sidetracked here, but I was back when it all went viral, my potato thing. I was on the news one time, and they were talking about me, and there was like a photo of me in the corner, and it had Andrew Taylor, potato eater. It'd have Howie Jacobson, PhD. It'd be impressive, but me, Andrew Taylor, potato eater.
Well, a year eating potatoes and getting a PhD have a lot more in common than you might think.
I'm sure. But anyway, this is about you. So it's about you and your partner Peter and your book, and it's really actually interesting to me, and sort of it's a real paradigm shift and a big change in my thinking, because I get the questions all the time from people about what do I do? I'm eating plant-based. I'm following a healthy lifestyle, and I really want my husband, my wife, my parents, whatever, to do something to change their ailing health. And I try and nothing happens, and for whatever reason they think I'm the guy to advise them on how to help people that they love to make these changes. And I've always said, there's nothing you can do. Just focus on yourself.
Mm-hmm.
You can't change other people. Just focus on yourself. And that's just, I wish I could give people different advice to that, but I don't have it. So, and I didn't believe it possible until now. So yeah, this book is exciting.
Well, yeah, and let me just bookend a little bit before we get to Peter. Is that my work in business and writing partner over the last 5 years has been Josh Lajani, whom you know, whose family, like, he changed himself, and then he really did a lot of heavy lifting to change his family. So his mother, his grandfather, his brother, his sister, his brother-in-law, like, all of them lost over 100 pounds. And like, that got me thinking, like, well, in fact, is it possible to change other people? And then in talking with Peter Bregman, who was my coaching teacher, I began learning coaching from him in 1999. He's, ICF certified master, whatever appellations they have, he's got.
Yeah.
And he's coached, CEOs at Fortune 50 companies. So, like top of the coaching game. He's ranked, I think, by leading global coaches as the #1 executive coach in the world. So, like, someone who knows something about coaching. And he's like, dude, if we can't change other people, then why are there coaches?
Yeah.
Like,
That's a good
don't we have a technology he pointed out to me when we were talking about like what was going to be in the book. It was originally going to be like just a coaching manual, because he teaches a coach training program that I've attended and assisted at several times. And he announced like April of 2019, it was going to be his last one. He wasn't doing them anymore. And I attended and helped out. And afterwards I said, you can't stop. This is really transformational. This is things coaches don't learn in their other programs. This is another level. You can't stop doing this. This is too important. And we said, well, maybe we could write a book together. And so as we're working on the book, like we're looking at different titles. And I have a history of working on books with titles that really don't turn people on. Like Whole, Rethinking the Science of Nutrition is a great book, but you can't argue that people wake up in the morning going, God, what I really want to do is rethink the science of nutrition.
Yeah.
Right. Like, there's books like Skinny Bitch, like, oh, now there's a title.
Yeah.
Right. And then, Proteinaholic, I thought was very clever, but people are like, huh, what?
Yeah.
Spell checkers mess it up. So I knew, we knew the importance of a title. And so this one came to us, like, you can change other people. And I'm like, well, that seems a little clickbaity. It seems too much, but Peter said, when you tell people you can't change other people, like you and I have done for many years, what are you doing but trying to change them? Right? We only say that to people who have been trying to change other people.
That's a very good point. Yeah. I hadn't thought of that.
So checkmate, Andrew.
Yeah.
All right. And the other thing is like, I have a garden, and this year a lot of basil came up in the garden. And it came up because my wife got the seeds, started them in the greenhouse, transplanted them to the soil, watered them, weeded them, pruned them. Now, did she grow the basil, or did the basil grow itself?
Yeah.
Right? The basil grew itself. Like, she didn't grow the basil, but if she hadn't done all those things, the basil wouldn't have grown.
Yeah, she provided a fertile environment for it. Yeah.
Yeah. So we can't change other people, but we can do things so that they will change. And in our absence, and in the absence of those things, they wouldn't have. So it's kind of a semantic difference.
Yeah. Okay. I see where you're coming from. That's a really good point. And that actually, something I've talked about before with other people is that when I'm having a conversation, obviously you probably have had the same thing as well, but I'm the potato guy, and lots of people like that, but there is a whole other sort of low carb movement that hates potatoes, and occasionally someone from that world will engage with me, and then I say to myself, I can't change this person. I'm not going to change their opinion. They hate potatoes, and that's just the way it is. But what I try to remind myself is that there's probably what I call an innocent bystander reading along in this comment thread, and is never going to engage with it, but is going to hopefully click with something I've said. And that sort of, I guess my aim there is to try to provide that environment for someone reading along to actually, understand that there are good things about what I do as well. And that maybe it's worth engaging a little bit more with it. And yeah, so that's what that idea of providing the environment for the basil to grow brought up about what I do. So yeah, I like that point of view.
Yeah. And, it's basically a coaching book. So we're not so interested in changing people's opinions and their minds, although that's often a prerequisite. It's often a part of it, but that's not the end goal. The end goal isn't, you hate potatoes and now you think carbs are fine. It's really, what we really wrote it for is for people who are surrounded by other people who are not living up to their potential, who are self-sabotaging, who are unhappy, who are performing poorly at work, who are a few steps away from doing their best work in the world. And they're often unhappy. right? Sometimes they're not. Sometimes you can be terrible at your job and be blissfully ignorant of it. But in a lot of places, you're going to end up getting fired or demoted or marginalized. At some point, that might come back to bite you. If you're in politics, you're probably fine for your entire career. But if you're in an actual business with measurable outcomes, you will face the music at some point. And so for those of us who are frustrated, who say, well, boy, I really wish my brother-in-law would get healthy because I really like the dude. And I can see the way he's eating himself into an early grave. And he's already on, cholesterol meds and diabetes meds. And, he's got kids who are in primary school. And like, I really want to talk to him and tell him, like, don't you know my story? Yeah. I used to be like you and I fixed it. And right. And we either, bang our heads against the wall and turn people off, or we keep our mouth shut for the sake of saving the peace. And so we wrote the book to create a third way in which you can engage in a way that people end up thanking you rather than resenting you.
Yeah, and that's a beautiful way to be. And I would put money on it that every single person who is watching this has someone in their life who they wish that they could influence that person to change, get healthier, get better with money, exercise more, whatever. And chances are that there are people who know the person watching this podcast who want to influence them to do the same. I'm sure that none of us are perfect. I'm sure my wife could tell you 50 things that she'd like to change about me, and probably your wife too. But yeah, so you've basically broken the process down into 4 steps. So why don't we work our way through those?
Okay. So step 1 doesn't really relate so much to coaches who get paid to change other people who want to change. But it a little bit it does, but it really is, for us civilians out there. Yeah. Right. Say again?
I'd say that from my point of view, it all relates to whether you want to be a paid coach that's helping someone or if you're just trying to influence a family member. From my point of view, it all relates. Yeah.
Right. Well, so the first step, the goal is really to get permission to have a conversation. So that's why I'm saying, like, if someone comes to you and says, hey, coach me, I'll pay you.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
The permission is implicit. Now, you still have to do you can still lose the permission.
Yeah.
So, but the first step is really to shift your perspective from critic to ally, which is hugely important. It's probably the most important thing you can do. Because if you come, and people ask me this, like, how do I change? I've been trying to tell my brother-in-law, my sister, my spouse, my kids, my parents, I've been telling them over and over again, and they just don't listen. And I ask them, well, how do you feel when someone comes up to you and tells you what to do? And, and knows, because they know better than you do, right? They're smarter, they have more knowledge, more intelligence. Somehow they are superior to you, and you're doing it wrong. Because that's the message that we get when someone gives us unsolicited advice. It's certainly the message we get when someone outright criticizes us, or when someone shames or blames or yells at us, or expresses anger, fear, frustration on our behalf. Oh, I can't believe, you're eating that again.
Yeah.
Right. So that we don't resist changing, but we do resist being changed.
Yeah, 100%. I've been on both ends of that. Obviously, having been morbidly obese, I've had plenty of people try to change the way that I was eating before, and I've had exactly those reactions. I don't like it. If I can specifically remember a moment now when a very good friend got angry at me. You're having your 3rd helping, Andrew. What are you doing? This is ridiculous. You can't have 3 serves of dinner. And I just got angry. Like who are you to tell me how to eat dinner? Probably a couple more colorful words thrown in there as well. And
in fact, I'm going to have 4 now that you said that.
Exactly. And then, of course, I've been on the other end since I changed my own life. And then you know, and then I become that person that's, hey, you know, you don't, you know, if you just change a few things. I try to do it in a more subtle way than my friend did to me, but equally unsuccessful. So yeah.
Yeah. So when we shift from critic to ally, the question shifts from how do I get this person to do what I want them to do, to how do I help them live the best life they can?
Yeah.
Right. So there's a couple of steps to that. The first is, like, we don't feel good when we are critical of other people. Like, and if we have self-awareness, we can kind of get down on ourselves. Like, oh, I can't believe how judgy I was. I can't believe I said, oh, I can't believe I feel that way about them. There's something wrong with me. And so now we're judging ourselves for judging them. So self-compassion really can start at home. So to say, so if you're angry at someone and you're constantly getting into fights with them over the way they're eating, let's say, and you wish you were different. So stop and find your own positive intent. Like, you're only angry because you care, right? Stephen Hayes, who created ACT, Acceptance and Commitment Therapy, says we hurt where we care and we care where we hurt. So this wouldn't be a deal if we didn't care about them. So let's drop the details and just dive into that caring. Boy, my brother-in-law, what a great guy. I love my sister who's married to him. I love his kids. I really want the best for him. He's fun. He's funny. I want the best for him. And we'll leave it at that. And so underneath whatever fear, anger, resentment, frustration, there is deep caring, deep positive regard. And when I feel that, I'm like, oh yeah, like, yeah, I've been, going about it maybe in a sloppy way, but I come from a good place. Right.
Yeah.
And from there, I can then look at the other person and say, what's their positive intent? Even if they're doing things that are stupid, that are hurtful, that are obviously, your third helping. You're this obese guy gorging on a meal, and I can't keep my mouth shut from saying something to you. And I think what's Andrew getting out of this? What's a positive? Well, he wants to feel good, right? When you overate, it was for good reasons. You were aiming for, like, to tell me, like, from your experience.
Yeah.
What was the positive behind your actions?
Yeah, it's 100% true. Every time I, snuck in an entire bag of chocolate chip cookies on the way home from grocery shopping, it was because I'd managed to convince myself somehow that it was a good idea. And a lot of the time that was dealing with emotions that I maybe didn't have the emotional maturity to deal with certain emotions. I was dealing with clinical depression, and I didn't really know how to handle that. And anxiety was a major issue for me, and I didn't really know how to do that. And when I loaded up on pizza and ice cream and whatever, then that helped me to, I guess, distract myself from these strong emotions that I didn't know how to handle. So yeah, and I'm sure that lots of people are in a similar boat to that. And yeah, that's why I love what you've been saying.
Yeah, because it's not that hard to empathize when we just take a moment to think, like, what could be the motivation? Andrew doesn't want to be sad and worried all the time. Who would?
Yeah.
Right. You self-medicated in a way that may have saved your life.
Yeah.
Right. In the absence of other tools. Right. So to really connect with, boy, this person, this brother-in-law whom I really care about, he wants to be happy. Or someone who's behaving badly at work, interrupting all the time. They really want to make a contribution. They care. Right. So really, really work hard to find the positive intent or the potential positive intent. Because sometimes if it's people who are just driving us crazy, is really hard to like, no, they're just a jerk. They just want to take all the credit. Okay, well, so significance, they want significance. They want to belong. They want to be approved of. They want to be recognized as valuable by the tribe. That's a fundamental human need.
Yeah,
Right?
absolutely.
So you see, when we get ourselves into that place of empathy, appreciation, curiosity, we can come with them with very different energy. And as a coach, you know exquisitely well how much our energy impacts the person we're talking to,
Yeah,
far more than our words, right?
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, no doubt at all.
Um,
It's yeah, it's from my point of view with when I'm coaching someone, obviously that when I'm coaching someone, it's someone who has actively asked me to coach them. So that's a slightly different scenario than than if it's a family or friend that you just wish they would get healthy and wish you could try to influence them somehow. But yeah, definitely when I'm coaching somebody, it's all about being open and being totally non-judgmental and just supportive and recognizing that people make mistakes, and if I get upset at them about it, that does the opposite of what I want it to do. So we need to just try to relax and sympathize and understand why people do what they do. And yeah, I think it's a good reminder that we can apply that sort of mindset to just your friend who you're having a conversation with over lunch. You can have the same mindset there, and that's a good helpful point. Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm a experienced coach, and there's rarely a session where I don't start feeling some judgment towards my clients.
Mhm.
Right? Like, and it's not a problem as long as I recognize it and I don't act from it. But I'll be like, oh man, why didn't you do that thing you said you were going to do? Come on.
Yeah.
And then I realized, what's that? That's about me. That's about me feeling, oh, come on, I'm a better coach than this. Why are you making me a bad coach? Right. So, like I can feel it now. It took me a long time, and there are still, I'm not perfect.
Yeah.
And that I know that there are personal egoic agendas that are likely to hijack my coaching if I'm not aware of them.
Yeah. Yeah. For me, that happened. It was my second job that I had as a teacher. So this is back in 2003. I started working at a school for, they call it for at-risk and disadvantaged youth. So basically the school I worked at was a school for kids that had been kicked out of every other school they'd been to. And it was the last chance sort of school for them before they were just basically there was nothing more the education system could do for them if they got kicked out of this school. And that was a very challenging time for me as a teacher, and that was really that time was where I learned the stuff that you're talking about, that this whatever these kids do, or however they treat me or treat each other, or however they respond to what I'm trying to teach them, it's not personal. There's no point in me getting upset about it. It's not about me. It's about them. And what I need to do is try to empathize with them and try to figure out what's driving their actions and what's driving their behavior, and then once I figure that out, try to help them figure it out and see it, and yeah, that getting down about things or getting judgmental about things is that job was that taught me a lot. So
Yeah.
move past that.
Yeah. And as I said, we all know that it doesn't feel good to be at the receiving end of it, but it seems to be our default. Right. So doing this is very counterintuitive, right? Being a coach, it's a little bit like, being a law enforcement officer or a soldier. You run towards you do things that the ordinary person would do the opposite of. Right. You have to inhibit certain responses and prioritize others. And as a coach, we do the same thing because it's not a natural human activity.
Yeah. It's not natural for me. Like it is a weird thing for me now that you mention it. I haven't thought about this that much before, but in my general life, the way I interact with my friends and family, I don't tend to be that guy that wants to go really deep on every conversation, really dig into people's emotions. That's not really who I am as a person. when I'm interacting just in daily life, but with it when I'm coaching, that's exactly what I do. The first thing, let's just get
Yeah.
right into the crux of it. And yeah, I haven't thought about that until you mentioned that.
Yeah. So then once we're in that space, we can then either approach or wait. So one thing I love is what we call in the book silver platter opportunities, where the person who you want to help change actually initiates the conversation. And they might do it in terms of like, hey, can you help me do this? Right. So if it's a work situation, they might say, hey, can you give me some advice here? And at that point, you're going to want to give them advice because you've been dying to give them advice. And we're saying, no, don't. Like, the point is not you giving them advice. The point is you empowering them to change themselves. And we'll talk a little bit about what the characteristics are for that we need to help people develop in order to maintain and sustain change. But so that's one thing. They could say, hey, can you give me some advice? And that's, then the answer is, you say, sure, would you like to think this through together? And that language is very hard to say no to. Right. And it's very respectful. And you then can begin the coaching process, the process by which you help them come to realizations that empower them to make their own changes. So I love that phrase. Peter taught it to me. Do you want to think this through together?
Yeah.
Right. Because now I'm not the expert. I'm not the superior one. We're just two people shoulder to shoulder looking at the issue.
Yeah, I love it. And you're bringing up all sorts of things about my own life, but it makes me think of when I want my kids to pack up their toys. I don't, sometimes I get angry and say, hey, pack up your toys. This room's a disgrace or whatever. But that usually doesn't work. If I say to my little 3-year-old, hey, I don't know where this little car goes. Can you show me where it goes? Then he'll go, yeah, no problem. He'll get it and he'll get a few more and they go in here. I'm like, yeah, why don't I do that every time?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, our toddlers are great teachers of coaching.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So another thing is, if somebody asks you to do something for them that they really should be doing on their own. This is more of a workplace setting. So, hey, boss, I've got a really important presentation to give to a prospect. It's a really big opportunity. Can you create the slides for me? Well, that's your job. That's why, I'd love to help you. Would you like to think it through together?
Yeah. Okay.
Right? So again, you're deflecting, and it's a very hard thing to say no to. Right. And if they say, like, oh, come on, you've done this so many times. We need this business. I'm happy to think it through together with you, but this is something you're going to need to do. Yeah. If you want to keep growing. So let's think about it together. Right. Yeah. Another is, and this is my favorite, because this is what typically comes up in real sort of families and friend circles, is somebody complains to you. And I love when people complain, because to me, the definition of complain is, I'm upset about something, but I'm not going to do anything about it.
Yeah. And I'm terrible at dealing with this scenario. So I'm really interested in what comes next, because when someone complains to me, all I want to do is solve the problem. And of course nothing ever happens. And I don't know what to do here. So I'm love to hear what happens next.
Yeah. Well, a complaint is them, like you're trying to get them to go plant-based. And they just, if they're complaining about, oh, I'm getting too fat, or, oh, the doctor put me on this med, or, oh, I can't, my knees are hurting, right? Anything related to that, you simply empathize. Boy, that sounds really frustrating, sad, upsetting. Boy, you look like you're about to cry. Like whatever you're seeing or hearing, or it seems like, you validate it, right? They complain, and you catch the complaint and toss it back to them with care. Like now you're in a conversation.
Yeah.
Right? All right. And then they'll elaborate. They'll say, oh yeah, it's like, I wake up in the morning and it hurts and I can't put weight on it. And my doctor says I need to lose 30 pounds before they'll even do the operation. And then you can say, boy, that sounds awful. would you like some help thinking about this?
Yeah.
Right? Instead of, would you like my advice to solve it? Or let me tell you how to solve it. Like when somebody complains, we're like, oh, I'm going to jump all over that bone.
Yeah.
Right? Now, oh, forks over knives, earthlings, what the hell?
Yeah.
The China study, start solution here,
Yeah.
So again, they're going to shut down, but a complaint is a silver platter opportunity. Say, boy, that sounds like it's something that's really bothering you. Would you, I thought about this a lot. Would you like to think it through with me?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And then if
Sorry,
they
keep
say
going.
no, yeah. So they might say no. And so that's part of this. Like the book is called You Can Change Other People, not You Definitely Will Change Other People. Like this is not a guarantee. And the paradox or the irony here is that in order to have the most influence, you have to completely give up any illusion of control.
Yeah. That's a really good point too.
So you never make an offer that you're not willing to accept a no answer.
Yeah.
Right. Okay, that's cool. All right. Now, if you have a history of beating the other person over the head and they just don't want to hear it anymore, and like say, oh yeah, you're going to tell me about that plant-based shit, right? Yeah, forget it. No, I don't want to hear it. You can preempt that. So one of my favorite books on communication is Never Split the Difference by Chris Voss, which is about negotiation. And he talks about something called an accusation audit, where you think about all the terrible things people could say about you or think about you, and you bring them up first.
Yeah.
Right. So you can preempt this. You can say, I've realized I've been really overbearing about this. I've been a jerk. I've been trying to tell you what to do, and I totally get it if you don't want to hear from me anymore. And I want to apologize because it didn't do any good, and it created tension. And I would love to just hear about it from your perspective, and if you give me a chance to just to think it through with you and not try to beat you over the head with my solution. What do you think about that? Could we start over?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I like that. And the solution doesn't have to involve potatoes, by the way, that from my point of view.
Right.
From now on, I will not mention potatoes. Yeah.
So at that point, if they say, yeah, I'd love to think it through with you. So that's the end of step one. And that really tees up everything else. And so the important thing here is when they say, yeah, I'd love to think it through with you, remember that they just agreed to think it through with you, not for you to tell them what to do. So the next step two is to identify what we call an energizing outcome, which is what do they want? And, why do they want it? So this is in coaching, we call it the big why. Let's figure out what's important to the person. But we're doing this just really out of curiosity. Like every question we ask is out of curiosity. This is not like motivational interviewing to convince them to care. Right? Like, well, how would your life be better if you weren't smoking? Right? Like these formulaic questions. And I know motivational interviewing has come from a very good place, but it's often taught and performed in a perfunctory way where we're basically trying to Socratically arm twist people into changing how they think about inputs and outputs. Yeah. And I'm saying, like, really be curious. Like, so your knees are hurting. What would be a great outcome for you? What would, if you could wave a magic wand, or if things went just the way you wanted, whatever language, what would you want? Because when we don't do this, if we go, okay, we like to think it through together, and you go, yeah, tell me about the problem. Tell me about how you're overeating, or tell me about the things you're doing that aren't working, or about the pains you're having. Then we're immediately into a conversation about solving a problem. All right. And when we're and fixing a problem mode, we are trying to undo something bad. And when we take a pause and we start with the outcome, now we're not just trying to solve a problem, we're trying to get somewhere. And it's much easier to go to a positive place than to go away from a negative place, right? There's so much more energy behind approach than avoidance, right? So what we say in the book is if you don't establish this energizing outcome, that's kind of like typing anywhere but here in your GPS.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Like, you don't know where to go. But once there's an outcome and it's clear, like, oh, you know what? I would like to get back to bicycling. At least I used to love that. And I'm just too heavy to feel comfortable on the bike and my knee hurts. But I loved it. We'd go mountain biking. We'd go on these vacations to the seashore and we'd rent bikes. And I would love to get back to that. Great. So that is where their energy is. You don't have to apply your energy and like, okay, so that would, make them happy. That's what they want.
Yeah.
And,
yeah,
go
from
ahead.
my point of view, the biggest change out of my whole change that I went through was going through that. This all was an internal process for me. I didn't do it. No one coached me or anything. But that process that you described there was the biggest thing that I did with my whole life, was that, I was someone who was very negative all the time. And when I had this idea to eat only potatoes for a year, everything about all of my thoughts were negative about, what if I fail? What if it doesn't work out? What if, it was just all negative. I was trying to go away from a negative place, basically. And I can remember the moment sitting on the couch thinking, there's a possibility that something positive might happen here. There's it's actually possible that maybe I can change my life here. And why don't I be fair on myself and spend a little bit of time thinking about what might happen if it all works the way that I hope it would in my wildest dreams. Spend a little bit of time thinking about that. And that moment was the biggest change of the whole process for me, because it just, it was the beginning of a change in mindset and a different way of looking at the world. So yeah, I think I love this step.
Yeah, and it's based in neurology, so our nervous systems, when they perceive threat, can only focus on where's the threat, and they miss opportunity. All right. So if we are trying to solve a problem and we're stuck in the problem and we're upset about the problem, we are unlikely to notice opportunities, to notice good things, to notice pathways forward. It's just our brains, right? Our survival brain is betting that if we want to survive, we got to avoid this bad thing, wherever it is, whatever it is. And so by starting with this outcome, like, what do you want? We immediately unlock a lot of creativity. All right. And just as a technical point, when you ask someone about their positive outcome, and this, I'm sure this happens all the time to coaches, people will tell you what they don't want, right? Oh, even something like, I want to lose the weight is kind of, it's a negative. It's like, I want to get away from being fat. I want to get off my diabetes meds. I don't want to be tired in the morning, right? So, and they will go on like this. And so the simple language we use to break them towards positivity is, and if you didn't have that, what would you have instead?
Yeah, right. All the time. I don't think I've ever had a coaching client or a student at school that I've been trying to help, for that matter, that has not started with what they don't want. That's always I don't want this. And yeah, okay, what would you replace that with?
Yeah, and that's kind of the diagnostic of why they're stuck.
Yeah.
Right. Because when we are focused on what we don't want, all we can see is what we don't want.
Yeah, like when you're trying to drive a car, or when you're trying to ski through the forest or whatever it might be, if you're driving a car and you're trying not to hit that tree, you're probably going to hit that tree. Yeah. So
yep,
I remember the gaps between the trees, not the tree itself. Yeah.
yeah. I remember when I learned that lesson in high school, playing frisbee golf, and thinking, "Oh God, don't hit the elderly couple on that bench." I'm like, oh, see how that works. So then once they've established an outcome that you want it to be positive, clear, and meaningful, like, so you're like, for the sake of what do you want that for? Because people will often just say what they think they should want, rather than really give themselves permission to want what they want. So we want to know, like, what's the import? For the sake of what do you want to lose 20 pounds? Right. And then people will tell you, climb a mountain, be an athlete, be happy at my naked self in the mirror, whatever it is. But it's there's people often think that their true motivations are superficial, right? As if feeling good, looking good, being happy with yourself is a superficial thing. Like, it's important.
Yeah.
So once we then get to the outcome, then we can explore the problem, right? And we say, so tell me what's happening. And we want to get specifics. We don't, they'll say, well, I generally do this. I get up in the morning and I'll usually have a bagel with cream cheese and an egg. And then, I'm driving to work and I keep telling myself I'm not going to stop for the giant soda, and I end up stopping anyway. And right. And they're telling you generalities. So as we then want to freeze frame, we want to get fly on the wall, because they've told themselves this story so many times that there's no way in there. It's just like, oh, this is my pattern. And they're not seeing the details. So our assumption is that everyone who's struggling with a behavior has a blind spot or multiple blind spots. There's something they don't see. So it's our job to ask them to tell us the details. So it's almost like, like those detective shows where the detective is in the bank of the video CCTV feeds, and he's watching the replay, and he's like, oh, there, show me that one again, slow motion, zoom in there. And then they see something. Like, that's what we're doing. So we're saying, so tell me about when you're driving, tell me, where are you going from, where are you going to, and where's the place where you get this giant soda? Oh, well, so when's the last time you did it? Well, yesterday. So tell me about yesterday, right? I'm a fly on the window of the car. What am I seeing? What am I hearing? And they're going to tell you, okay, so then I turn into the 7-Eleven and get the soda. Okay, did you turn left or right? It's a right turn. Okay, how many lanes on the road? There's 2 lanes. So there's a left lane and a right lane. So we can figure out at some point, if you don't want to do that, 2 miles earlier, get into the left lane.
Yeah.
Like, that's the moment at which you make your decision. And with that kind of clarity, I've had people where I just ask question after question like that, just stupid, granular detail questions, and they completely solve it themselves. Like, oh, of course I went to Popeye's fries because I was really hungry. I was shaking. I was hypoglycemic. I'll just put an apple in my bag in the morning. Like, yeah. I'm literally twiddling my thumbs, sitting back, and they're solving the whole thing because they're now looking at a specific event rather than a generalization that has no no detail, nothing you can sink your teeth into. So we want to find out what's the scenario.
So I was just going to say, if people can learn from what happened yesterday on the drive to work, and then next time they do that drive, they get in the car with a specific plan in mind, so that before that occasion happens, they know what they're going to do, rather than waiting for the occasion to come up and then under pressure they then have to come up with a solution. It's not going to happen. You need to, once they've worked out what the solution is, they can then get into that situation with the thought at the front of their mind, and it makes it a lot easier when the stress arises. You've got the solution there ready. It makes it
right.
Yeah,
it's like any sort of planning. Like, people plan for important things in their lives, but we have so many good qualities and useful strategies that we apply everywhere but our lives. Like, we apply it to work, we apply it to hobbies, except like when it comes to our lifestyle habits and our diets, it's like, oh, we don't have those skills. Right. I did a demo call with someone who had asked about how can he help a family member change their diet. And I walked him through the process a little bit, just basically the first step, just to get to the point where they could have the conversation. And he smacks his head and he goes, I've been doing this for 30 years. I'm in complex sales. I would never tell, he's like, what you just taught me is what I've been doing for the better part of my entire career. Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah, probably in the same way. You know, I spent 15 years helping those kids I described earlier from at-risk backgrounds and all of that, and really all I had to do was just turn that on myself.
Yeah, and so that, you know, the given the space to think positively, to think about, you know, to be regarded, to have your problem regarded with empathy, creates a safe space. Asking about the positive, the energizing outcome starts to create this positivity. And then, so now we can then look at the problem, but we're looking at it through the lens of how we're going to get to our energizing outcome. We're not looking at the problem to how we're going to solve the problem, but how we're going to use the problem to get to this energizing outcome. So then we can talk about, well, what have you tried in the past? And sometimes people will have a long list of things they've tried. And sometimes people are like, I haven't really tried much. And it doesn't matter. We just want to hear kind of how they've approached the problem in the past. And generally they can start to see the problems with all their solutions, like why this hasn't worked. Oh yeah, well, I really, they're already, once you talk them through the details of the situation through this fly on the wall technique, they can see, well, obviously that wouldn't have worked, or beating myself up, it doesn't work, or right? They're a little more pliable. And then so now we're in the third stage, which we call opportunity, like identify or discover a hidden opportunity. And the idea is that in pretty much every case, the problem actually is a doorway to the outcome that they want. It actually can help. So I'm sure looking back, you can think about, like, how did your struggle with obesity, which is the problem you were trying to solve, or diabetes, and, you know, like your health, you were trying to solve with potatoes. How was that a good thing? How are you glad that you had that problem now?
Yeah, well, for me, it was eating only potatoes forced me to confront all those cravings and all those bad habits, because, you know, you can go for a day or two eating only potatoes. It's hard, but, you know, it can be done. But if you want to do it for a whole year, you're going to have to, you know, butt heads with your old ways and figure out how to get through it. So to me, it presented, rather than looking at cravings as, you know, I always talk about with my clients, the chocolate shelf in the fridge. My wife still ate chocolate and I didn't stop her from it. The chocolate was always there in the fridge. And I figured out that rather than that chocolate shelf being, you know, my nemesis, the thing that was going to bring about my downfall, I learned to look at it as an opportunity. This is a chance to practice saying no to chocolate. You know, every time I go to the fridge, it's a great opportunity to strengthen that muscle in my mind that says, no, we don't eat chocolate anymore. And it was, you know, and there's opportunities like that throughout my life that I was able to look at a different point of view. And instead of seeing this as, oh no, I have to, you know, confront this major demon, it was always great. I've got a chance to figure out a new way here, and it's a great opportunity. And yeah, so that was a big thing that I learned, obviously from a food point of view, but now it's something that I'm not always perfect at, but in other areas of my life, when I confront challenges, I'm better at looking at those challenges and going, great, this is a chance to learn something new, apply a new tactic, whatever, and try and find a new way through. So yeah, I'm very grateful for that experience. And yeah, if I had not gone through that few years of my life that were a really big struggle, then, you know, I wouldn't be enjoying life the way I am now. So yeah, I'm grateful for it all. Yeah.
Yeah, it's beautiful. You know, and if we had asked you that day that you decided to start eating potatoes, like, what's your goal? You might have come, I want to lose weight, I want to reverse my diabetes. And if we say, like, for the sake of what? Like, I want to be in control of myself. Right? Like, I want to be a person of integrity. I want to keep my word. I want to be happy. Right? I want my deeds, my words, and my thoughts to all align. Like,
yeah,
that's more important than your weight.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's nice to lose 100 pounds, but if I'm exactly the same person except 100 pounds lighter, well, what's the point? You know, you know, I need to use that, my new body, my new energy, my new health, I need to use that to extract more from my life than or not necessarily more, but better things from my life than I did before. And that's what makes it all worth it. So yeah, 100%. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and I really can't, that's kind of the bulk of the book, is how we do that, is how we help people reframe the problem as an opportunity. Like, how can I use this problem to achieve the energizing outcome? And we can say, like, what's good about the problem? What do you like about it? What does it do for you? So in your case, like, oh, it makes me feel happy in the moment. It gets rid of my sadness and anxiety. So great. So if, how the goal is to be happy and serene, or not anxious all the time, how can we use this problem to get there? And then you'd be like, well, so I could build my muscle.
Yeah.
Right. I could, if I stop giving into the cravings, I'm going to have to get to the root of my depression and anxiety.
Yeah. And
Right.
we're going to have to, we're going to have to find other ways to deal with that, the sadness or the stress or the boredom or whatever it is, the reasons that you eat. If you eat because you're bored, well, there are plenty of other things you can do that are interesting that, we can, it's different for everyone, but, eat something and then find something interesting to do. There's little solutions like that are just doing that's going to make your life more exciting anyway. And you're going to get closer to your weight loss goal at the same time. Yeah. Little thing.
Yeah. So that's the opportunity step, is to really kind of help them reframe. Like, oh, here's how I can get better than what I thought. Like, when I started, I just thought I wanted to get rid of the problem, but I can see I can use the problem to kind of leapfrog to something even better. And and it just comes up again and again. And you kind of have to trust the process. And even like I'm doing these demos to create, supplemental web material for people who read the book. And even every time I do the demo, I'm like, I wonder if it's going to work this time. Like, it just seems so miraculous. And then, just trusting the process. It's like, that's how life works, that when people are in a positive space, in a generative, creative space, they will always look for the upside.
Yeah, there's no other way it can go. I say this to my clients all the time, that, all you've got to do is exactly what you said, trust the process, just keep on repeating step 1, step 2, step 3, just the way we've laid it out, just keep on repeating it. And despite, of course, thoughts are going to come up that say, what's the point? I've been doing this for 2 weeks and I still haven't lost 100 pounds. And, it's what am I going to do? There's no point. But if you can figure out a way to just, push that to the side a little bit and go, well, just trust the process, take the next step, take the next step, take the next step. The only way it can go is that you will end up where you want to be. That's the, if you're assuming that you've got the right steps in place, then, it's just nature will take its course. Yeah.
Yeah. And, and very often, so if you had said, my goal is to stop having cravings for chocolate, in this conversation, you would have gotten to, actually, the cravings are a good thing.
Yeah.
Right. The goal is not to get rid of the cravings. The goal is to not give in to the cravings. The goal is to strengthen myself in the same way that I go to the gym and I see all those weights and I go, oh, damn, there's weights at the gym. Like, that's the whole point.
Yeah, exactly. And incidentally, that chocolate situation in the fridge that I described, I call that my cravings gym. So there you go. Yeah. Yeah. It's an opportunity to go and work out and get stronger. Yeah. And, it's cravings are not the issue for me that they were before. It's not like, the intensity is not there that was there before. But, occasionally that craving does pop up. And because I've done the work and had many visits to the cravings gym, I can push that craving to the side very, very easily now, when before it was a major struggle. So, yeah, you just keep on doing the work and you get better. Yeah, there's just no other way for it to go.
Yeah. Yep. And so the fourth step is plan, to create what we call a level 10 plan, which simply means, if I say on a scale of 1 to 10, how confident are you that you can do this? You say 10, which means we want the plan to be sort of modest. right? And we want to frame it as an experiment. So, you know, the word try has gotten a really bad rap in, like, you know, the self-help movement. It's like, no, Yoda, do not, there is no try, do or not do.
Yeah, I'm guilty of that one.
Well, we love well, try has two meanings, right? Try is like, yeah, I'll try, like I'll give it a half-hearted effort. But try also means I will sample. Like I'll try the wings. I'll try the cauliflower wings. I'm suspicious, but I'll give them a try. Right? That's what we're asking people to do. It's like, what would you like to try? Right? Instead of like, what are you going to do? What would you like to try? Right? So we're framing it as an experiment because we don't know what's going to happen. We don't know. Hey, we want to try eating only potatoes for a year? Cool. Give that a try. See what happens. Right? As opposed to, are you going to commit to potatoes for most people, like commitment is like, you know, we're going to screw their feet to the ground somehow, and then they're going to lose their autonomy again. So, you know, so plan has 3 steps where we help them identify options, choose from among those options, and then make a commitment, not to us, but to themselves. Like, this is, I'll try this for 2 weeks and see how it goes. And we want to find out, like, how will you know if it's working? So we can talk about, you know, what are you going to look at for measurement? Obviously, I'm not going to lose 100 pounds in 2 weeks, but I might lose 3 pounds, or I might feel better or feel lighter or be less cranky in the evening or need less coffee during the day, right? To think, like, how might you know it's working, right? So that's basically the process. So that, you know, there's some sort of technical stepwise aspects to it, but the principles are really to become an ally, so that you create this safe space where people can explore freely, and then shift from the negatives to the positives, from the problem to the outcome, and then from the problem to an opportunity to achieve that outcome. Like I would say, that's the heart of the methodology.
Yeah, I love the science one as well. That's something that another thing that I've used before myself is, and I'll talk about it with the scales is a big one, because people don't like getting on the scales and weighing themselves. And I always tell people, you know, if I was a scientist and I was, you know, I would develop a hypothesis that if I get Howie to eat potatoes only for 1 month, or, you know, whole food, plant-based, whatever, you know, or run every day for 1 month, whatever the thing is, then he will lose weight. And then that's the hypothesis. Okay, now let's run an experiment. And when Howie gets on the scales, the scientist is not going to get overly, you know, excited or depressed or whatever, depending on what the scales say. The scientist is just going to write it down in his chart and move on. There's no time to get upset or get overly excited. It's just a data point. Write it on your thing and move on. And you don't get to figure out, you don't get to write the conclusion of the experiment until the experiment's over. You know, you got to get through that month and get all of the data points, and then you can decide whether that was a success or not. And yeah, a lot of people will just get 1 or 2 data points and then end the experiment because it's not, you know, what they want it to be, or hasn't happened fast enough. And yeah, so I really love that experiment idea, because, you know, you just don't, unless you run the experiment, you don't get results. Then they're not valid results until the experiment's finished.
Right. And the only way to fail is to not collect the data points.
Yeah. So
right. Like you've wasted. Yeah. So when I work with clients and they come and they tell me something terrible that they've done, like, oh, I ate this, I went on vacation and I did all these, I'm like, fantastic. That's awesome. Let's tell me what you learned.
Yeah, that's great.
Like it takes them aback a little bit. Like, I'm so happy to hear about their mistakes.
Yeah, I always say it's only a failure if you don't learn. So fantastic. Let's figure out the lesson and move on. Yeah.
Right. So there was one more thing I wanted to cover, if that's okay. All right, which is, I said, the 4 principles, the 4 characteristics that we want to grow and encourage in the people that we're helping to change. Because we think about, like, okay, what I want for them is to eat this way, right? I want them to do these things specifically. We want to get away from that, and we want to get towards these four things. So the first one is ownership, which is they're going to own the change. So we only can get in the way of ownership if we start giving it to them. Like, okay, here's what you do. Right. And there's places for our expertise. I'm not saying if you know something, you know, you're the world expert on carbohydrate-based health, right? Like, I'm not saying muzzle and pretend you don't know anything, but offer advice when it's asked for, like, or say, I've got some thoughts. I have some experience here. Would you like to hear it? Right. And you do it at the point when the person's hungry for it. Like, when they were looking at options, like, oh, I don't know what to do. I've got a couple of thoughts. Would you like to hear them? Right. It's very different than let me tell you what to do.
Yeah.
Right. And you're always giving them the power to accept or reject them. Like, here's something that worked for me.
Yeah.
Right.
Definitely.
So we want to maintain their ownership. The second thing is we want to grow their independent capability. So if they rely on us, if you give somebody a meal plan and they never graduate from that meal plan, they're still dependent on you to give them a meal plan every week. Or if they go out of town and they can't shop for themselves, or they're on vacation, or the store stops carrying XYZ brand, then they haven't, you want them to grow so that they can do this thing in more and more environments.
I'm really happy that you brought that up, because that's one of the biggest things that comes up for me, is that people ask me what my meal plan is. Where can I find the meal plan? I'm like, no, we don't have a meal plan. You're going to make your own meal plan. And I'm going to teach you and hold your hand and guide you through how to make your own meal plan, but I'm not going to give you one. I will never do that. And that turns some people off, of course, but hopefully the people that don't get turned off by that maybe become a little bit more self-sufficient as a result of working on this with us. So yeah, I'm really glad you brought that up, because that's a big one for me.
Yeah. And, and I don't think there's anything necessarily wrong with meal plans, as crutches or as starters, or maybe if people can, right, it's convenience. But the point is, we don't want to leave them there.
Yeah.
Right. So the third thing is something that you experienced every time you opened your fridge, which is emotional courage. Right? We want to help people grow their emotional courage, which is the ability, the willingness to feel all their feelings. Right? Because whatever they want to change, at that moment, it's going to feel hard. It's going to feel scary. Like, we like doing the things that we're used to doing, even if they get us terrible results. In the moment, being comfortable and knowing, being expert. Like, I'm an expert at eating chocolate. Like, I'm an expert at going to McDonald's and ordering the meals there. Like, I know exactly what to do. But now I go to this like hippie smoothie shop and I feel like an idiot and I don't know what to do. And I don't understand what acai is and, all this stuff and quinoa. And I just, I'd rather, right. So we want to help people, support them as they practice emotional courage, and to understand that that's what it's going to take. And we want to sort of titrate it. So it's not like, tomorrow I'm going to do the high jump on the ski slope, right? But that they're constantly thinking about how will I feel at that moment? Like, it'll take emotional courage not to swerve back into the right lane and get that big gulp, because the big gulp makes me feel better. And if I'm going to resist the big gulp, I'm going to have to deal with a less than optimal state. I have to be willing to feel it, right? You had to feel a year's worth of things.
Yeah, I had to feel a year's worth of things in about 2 weeks. And then after that, the rest of the year was not too bad, but it did feel like a year's worth of feelings crammed into 2 weeks. And then I was okay after that. And that's probably an important lesson too, that, you need to, that feeling that you get from driving past that place that serves the big gulp and not turning in, that's uncomfortable. But, it's hard to, in that moment, remember that it's only going to be a couple of weeks of uncomfortable and then you'll be okay,
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. It's never, the feeling is always worse than the thing that we are worried about.
Yeah.
And resisting the feeling is far worse than the feeling.
Yeah. And if you can forego that little bit of, that instant gratification sort of thing that comes with turning in and getting that big gulp, then that makes you feel happy in the moment. Whereas if you pass it up, you might not feel happy in the moment, but down the track, your overall life happiness is going to get better. So it's hard to give up that instant thing to get something bigger later on. It's a difficult thing, but it's worth it if you can figure out a way.
Yeah, yeah. And the fourth is what we call future proofing, which is, it's related to this independent capability. Like, meal plans will not future proof you. So that assume that you'll face greater challenges in the future. And so you want to be helping people grow, just same way that you go to the gym and you work your muscles and your muscles go, oh, that sucked, I'd better get stronger.
Yeah.
Right. Not stronger so I can lift this weight, but who knows what the next one will be. I better get stronger so that I can lift even heavier weight. Right. So future proofing is really about helping people think about the challenges that are coming down the pike, so that the next time they don't need to rely on you. They start having tools to continually change themselves, which is what you ended up doing with yourself.
Yeah.
Right. You did like the learning to eat potatoes and nothing else was honestly the most trivial part of your change.
Yep, definitely. Yeah, that was
right. If that's all you knew how to do, you wouldn't have gotten very far.
Yeah. Yeah, I like that. But yeah, no, it was an important part of what I did, but yeah, definitely it was not. I'm at pains all the time to say that it was not about eating only potatoes. That's not the point. Like, yeah, it's a big part of it, but it's really not the point. It was just, that was a vehicle that allowed me to do everything else that I needed to do, rather than, the be all and end all in itself. That was, yeah. I think it's probably the same for anyone who wants to make a major lifestyle change, whether, if you decide that running a marathon is the thing that's going to get me to change myself as a person, so that I can, be a better husband or whatever, the marathon, yeah, it's a good, worthwhile thing to do. But the point is that, you want to, that's a vehicle that allows you to see life from new angles and see relationships from new angles and all of that. And sometimes you just need a little challenge thrown in there to help you see life differently. And that's all that was for me. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
that's all I got. If you have more questions, or
no, I think I think that's been really enlightening personally for me, and I hope for a lot of other people too. Like I said, this whole idea is a major paradigm shift for me. Obviously, I'm aware that I can change people, but I've only ever tried to change people that have specifically asked me to help them change. And I love that there are some toolkits, tools in my kit now available, where, if there's someone in my life who I think could benefit for some change, then, I've got these little things that I can use to hopefully help them make the changes for themselves, and, without confrontation. And because that's basically, I've given up on trying to help people that haven't asked for my help for a long time now. And I'm excited to try some of these things and see how it goes.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, and for me, the litmus test is, are they grateful afterwards?
Yeah.
Right. So if I'm being manipulative, or if I'm foisting my agenda, at the end, they're going to resent it.
Yeah.
But if they're, like, oh, thanks, man, that's great. That really, yeah, wow, I can't wait.
Yeah.
But you know what? I think I'm going to start eating potatoes.
Yeah, no, that's great. Well, yeah. So when's the book out?
September 22nd.
September 22nd. All right. We'll put this video up sometime close to that time, and yeah, hopefully everyone watching will buy a book and support Howard and Peter and make this a successful thing, because I'm sure everyone watching has realized that I'm excited by it, and I hope you guys are as well. So yeah, let's do it. Let's make this book big.
Awesome. Thank you. And yeah, thanks so much for the opportunity to talk to you. It's always a pleasure. It's so much of a pleasure that I stay up late to do it.
Oh, what's the time there now for you?
Oh, it's almost 9. It's like,
All right. Okay. Well, thank you for staying up late.
oh, it's a pleasure. It's almost my bedtime.
Well, yeah, don't let me keep you up any longer. But yeah, thank you for writing this book. First of all, it's changed my mind and changed, the way I'll be approaching things with people around me who I love. So, yeah, that's very exciting. Thank you for not only the book but your podcast and everything else you do. You're putting a lot of good out into the world, and you deserve to get a lot of it back. So, yeah, all the best.
All right. Well, thank you so much. I love hearing that. I'm practicing taking compliments and not just brushing them off. So thank you. I really appreciate it. And of course, right back at you. Your work is an inspiration to me, to a lot of my friends, clients, students, followers. And so I'm so happy to be in this with you.
Thank you, and spud up.
There it is. What did you think? I hope you enjoyed that as much as I did. And I hope you learned something that you can use in either your coaching or in your conversations with people that you love and care for. And I hope it can make a difference in your life. So yeah, post your comments below. Tell us what you liked about it, and also, of course, click the links below and get the book. All right, spud up, everybody.